Hey, what's up, garden friends? Jeff, your tropical plant party. How's everybody doing? I hope you're good. I'm great. Even better when I know you're doing well too. Now, I picked up some Ranunculus and I thought, it might actually be a good idea to do a quick care video on these plants because their needs are a little bit more specific than your typical annual or perennial, depending on where you live. I'm going to be using these in a video that will be coming out right after this one, and it just seemed like it'd be too much to have the care and the design of what I'm going to do with them all in one thing. Does that make sense? Well, I hope so, because I'm getting started anyways. So these are Ranunculus. Ranunculus asiaticus, asiatica, something along those lines. Where I live, these are considered to be an annual. I'm in zone 6A, 6B, right, kind of on the line. These are going to be a perennial for you in zone 8. Some people say zone 7. I'm speculative about that one. I think it really kind of depends on your environment. These have more specific needs than you would think, considering how common they are. Because see, what makes the Ranunculus a little bit more difficult is that they do not like to have high temperatures and wet feet. For me, the Ranunculus is an annual that you typically grow, I would say, late March through maybe very early June. But once summer gets here, temperatures get into the 90s, we get a lot of rain, and yeah, they just don't like it. So essentially what I'm saying here is that these are a cool to intermediate temperature loving plant. At high heat and a lot of water, and nope, they're not going to be very happy with you. Just with life in general, I should say. And that's why for me, these are typically grown as an annual. Now you can plant these from tubers. If you live south of zone 8, I would recommend doing that in the probably mid-springtime. If you have clay soil, don't plant them in that clay. Go ahead and dig up a big area, amend it really well with a nice, well-draining organic compost, and plant them up higher. No more than 2 inches down, but plant them up a little bit higher than the ground level so that they're never sitting in saturated soil. And that way you can water them and they will dry off more quickly. Mulch them as well. This will help keep the roots nice and cool. And to keep them flowering well, once the flowers start to kind of wilt and fall back, go ahead and snip those off. And that's going to allow the plant to put more energy into producing new buds. And then once they're done blooming, I go ahead and I just let them kind of die back. The plant will grow a little bit, like I said, for me, once they stop blooming is also usually when the heat comes in. That's when the foliage will start to yellow and the plant will die back. I could keep this as a perennial and dig those tubers up. The problem is storing the tubers of the Ranunculus is a little bit tricky because, like I mentioned, they do not like moisture. So I would probably store these in some type of netted bag, maybe a nylon stocking. I would not put any peat in there with it, and I would probably give them a good sprinkling with sulfur powder just to be safe. And then I'll hang them in a cool, dark, dry place until it's time to plant them up again next year. Now, I don't normally mess with that. That's not something I usually do because I can just buy new ones in the spring. They're fairly common where I live to buy as an annual at most garden centers. But just as far as the overall care is concerned, it's best to go ahead and provide these guys with nice, bright light. Morning sun is really great with them. Regular irrigation, but not so much as the plant is sopping wet for an extended period of time. When in doubt, light, frequent waterings are probably best, and it does need to dry out between waterings. I think I've said that probably 100 times. That's because it's very, very, very important. Now, if they're in blazing sun and the temperatures are getting hotter, the longer they're dry, the more wilty they're going to be. But if you overwater them, then they're also going to be really wilty and rot. They're tricky and finicky like that. So I make sure to use a very loose, coarse potting mix, something that will drain really fast, doesn't have very much peat in it because peat holds on to moisture for a really long time. And then I give them a light watering in the morning, in the fairly early morning, actually. Now, I would not water these in the heat of the afternoon sun. Really, the care is actually fairly similar to that of a lavender, in that they'll rot if it's too hot and too wet. And lastly, and very important, the Ranunculus is toxic to dogs and cats. Keep it away from them. And generally, if something's toxic to dogs and cats, it's probably not great for children either. So if you have cats and dogs that like to roam your garden and eat your plants, this may not be the best plant for you. Or you can put them in a planter up high where they can't get to them. I will say that gnats and snails do seem to be very drawn to the Ranunculus as well. But hey, that's going to do it for this video. Just a very brief run through on the care of the Ranunculus. They're really not that hard to keep. But, as far as keeping as a perennial goes, a little bit more tricky. You need to live in the right location. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video. It helps a lot, and I really do appreciate every single one of them. It means a lot to me. Subscribe as well. I upload multiple times a week. I'll put my social media stuff down there in the roots of the video. You can follow me, I'll follow you back, and we'll have fun, nerdy plant time together, looking at each other's plant pictures and whatnot. I hope everybody's doing well, and as always, everybody, keep on growing. Bye-bye.